Bulletproof Blamball back with another video. Biggest and baddest fight channel on YouTube. Your one-stop shop for everything fighting and fitness. And today, we're going over that whole Tom Aspinall situation. Yet again, man, I've been grinding. Got a bunch of content dropping soon. Videos in the safe. You know, I want to move on from the Tom Aspinall situation, man. But the story is just so juicy, man. I can't stay away from it. I got to give my opinion, my thoughts, my feelings, my analytic prowess on the situation. You feel what I'm saying? But the real question is, you know, should we feel bad for Tom Aspinall? You know, do we as the fans, fellow fighters, the Cyril Gane, owe Tom Aspinall an apology? We're about to find out right now.
Pick 'em up, take 'em to the moon, to the fucking thing. I'm riding through New York, finna go and shoot New Jersey up. Tryna take my chain, they ain't going. We gon' come and blow New Jersey up. You want something? Hurry up, Try to rob, bitch, we 30'd up. Just like volcanoes, bitch, I'm curried up. Cheese in my pockets, velvet up. Hey, I'm a gorilla.
Alright, man, let's get back to it. Today, we got Uncle Chael reacting or giving his take on this whole Tom Aspinall situation. About a day and a half, 2 days ago, Tom Aspinall finally came out with a little press release on Instagram and on YouTube about his thoughts on Dana White, his thoughts on Cyril Gane being a cheater, and his future with the UFC. If y'all haven't heard about it, go check out my last video. I cover it all. But yeah, man, Uncle Chael, what y'all got to say? What you got to say, man? The people want to know.
Tom Aspinall, guys, do some of you owe him an apology? Tom Aspinall is legitimately hurt still.
Have not seen this video, by the way, but it was sent to me, and you know, you gotta listen to Uncle Chael's opinion. That's Uncle Chael, man.
Tom Aspinall is not cleared to fight still. He is not cleared to train still, which is something, yes, that a commission can enforce. Comes with your privileged license. Tom Aspinall is having doctor's appointments and trying out different remedies still. Do some of you owe him a bit of an apology? And Anthony Smith and I got pinned on us that we were pretty hard on Tom, which we weren't. Neither one of us. But we both saw the piece of our very selves, and go, that looks like we were pretty hard on Tom. We were discussing a topic of which does not make the clip. The clip just to set the context, if you're aware.
You know what? Let's go look at this video. You know, let's click out. Let's go see what Uncle Chael is talking about. Because, you know, rather than explaining the context to you guys, I would rather show you exactly what Uncle Chael says when he says they were on fire from media and Tom Aspinall fans based off what they said after the Tom Aspinall versus Cyril Gane title fight, right? You know, and before we watch what Uncle Chael and Anthony Smith had to say, I personally don't see anything wrong with what they said. I don't know why they were under fire for what they said, bro. They were speaking from a fighter's perspective.
Brendan, but to fight with one eye is very common. The opponent's trying to hit your eye. He's trying to bust up and make your nose bleed. So that part of it does have question for guys like Anthony and I. We're trying to be polite. We're trying to show grace. But in all fairness, if you're the heavyweight champion of the world, you got to fight with one eye at times. I thought that the fight was turning out to be a little bit harder than perhaps Tom had expected. I had one concern with Tom, and this is not his fault. It's because he's so doggone good. But the reality is he finished 6 guys in the first round. He's never been to a third round of a fight, just for example. So the question is, how are you going to respond when things get tough? But there was something about the way that the story was being told, the way that it was being held on the eye and never removed. I mean, don't forget, this cloth that he had in his eye contained an ice cube.
Never removed it. Man, y'all take y'all weights out, man. Like I always say, we not just watching content, we getting better at the same damn time. All right? But like I was saying, like Chad was saying, he never removed the towel. You may be thinking to yourself, oh, but his eye was damaged. The whole point in him having to remove the towel, and why that is so specific and why it's so important that he removes the towel, is because how do you know that you can continue, or how do you know if you can continue fighting if you don't check your vision, bro? I mean, to me, this is a clear-cut description of someone who does not want to fight. You know, if you don't remove the towel to see if you can see, how can you check your vision without removing what is over your said vision? Can anybody do that? Does anybody know how to see through a towel, or can you see through your hand? If you have your hand over your eye, can you check your vision then? No. You have to remove whatever's covering your eye in order to check your vision, bro, to see if you can see. How are you going to check your vision doing this for 5 minutes straight, 10 minutes straight? I think that the reason why Tom Aspinall did not remove the towel is because he knew that there was no exterior damage on his eye. What I mean when I say exterior damage is he knew that there was no cut on his eye. He knew that there was no bleeding on his eye. There was no real damage to his eye besides internally. And he did not want people to see that. You know? Let's see what else Chael got to say post-fight. This is all sort of old content about a month ago, but still.
This wasn't some kind of a magic cloth that was going to cure a cornea or something that was wrong with your eye or even take swelling away. It contained an ice cube, and it was just being held on there oddly. Then there was conversations that were taking place. There was a story that was being told, and I've checked out of fights before. I know what it looks like, and I knew that he was done.
There, here it is in real time. I'm not saying it's Tom's fault, and I'm not gonna, pretend that I know how bad it is or isn't. I think Chael made a poetic point that you have to be used to or willing to fight with one eye. I did it in Singapore. You never say I can't see if you want to continue to fight. So when they ask the question, you just walk away. Like, you find a way to get away from the doctor. If you want to fight, you can fight.
If your eye gets swollen and it gets shut, or if your nose gets clogged and you can't breathe, then you're kind of used to these things. Tom said something, and look, we got to dwell on a guy in a really bad moment, but to dwell on him, he said, I got poked in the eye, I can't see. If you get poked in the eye and you're injured, we have a totally different conversation. If you get poked in the eye and you can't see, generally in our sport, that's just something you've got to push through.
Don't just take classes. Take charge. Start your comeback to...
And they're right, bro. They're 100% right in saying that, bro. They are 1,000% right, bro. Generally speaking, as the heavyweight champion of the world, brother.
Well, so Tom Aspinall has just provided his diagnosis after seeing multiple doctors in the UK. And
what has to happen and why the 5 minutes? That looks like we were pretty hard on Tom. But we both...
Generally speaking, when you're the heavyweight champion of the world, you're expected to continue fighting, bro. That's just what people expect of you, Tom. I'm not coming for you. I'm just saying.
Saw the piece of our very selves and go, that looks like we were pretty hard on Tom. We were discussing a topic of which does not make the clip. The clip just to set the context, if you're aware of what I'm talking about. But we were discussing a topic of what has to happen and why the 5 minutes of recovery was put in place initially. How a no contest became involved in our sport as opposed to a decision of pass or fail, win or lose, disqualification or TKO. And the intent behind that and the reality that we have now are not the same, and that's what Anthony and I spoke to. But we, of course, had no idea whether Tom was hurt or not, and I don't know that it would have factored into our opinion. We we accept that he could be hurt, and we accept that in a fight, one athlete is going to be hurt. Now, should you have to continue on when you're hurt? Yeah, sure. Should you have to continue on when you're hurt, and what hurts you is a technique that's prohibited? Therein lies the $1 million question. And I remember my reaction right when this fight was over. And I like Tom. I like Tom a lot. I like Tom's father. This is on a human level. I don't know Surreal. He could be a perfectly nice guy. I know that Surreal as our champion, as a company, is a problem. And anything that could force us to see John Jones versus Surreal again is a really big problem. At any rate, to just speak about this event, I remember right when it was done. I remember telling you guys, I'm mad. I feel shorted as a fan. I know what I went through to be here. As a fan, I don't know if you guys know the United States geography very well, but I, in West Lynn, could not possibly live any further from Bristol, Connecticut. If I was to travel any further than West Lynn to Bristol, it would take me out of the country. There is nowhere within the country that is further, airport-wise, away from each other than where I live versus to where I got to witness, call, and bring reaction to you over that fight. And on a human level, I get that that's my job. I get that nobody needs to feel bad for me. But speaking to that personalization, I felt shorted and I felt incomplete. That contest was incomplete. We had a conflict, but we did not have resolution. Now, when I say that I'm mad, I didn't know then, and I'm not sure now, who I'm mad at. Because I wasn't sure then, and I'm not sure now, whose fault it was. The last person that I would blame is the referee.
If you live in a North Carolina zip code and have 0 DUIs in the last 5 years,
I don't do that. And I've refereed before, and I've had people treat me very terribly when my intentions were great. It was just to go out there and do a role that very few people want to do.
That was such a random ad. What are you talking about, bro?
Which, by the way, if I don't do it, and to the best of my ability, the contest itself doesn't even happen, and I was just refereeing children, by the way. And I got treated very badly, and I try to never put it on the referee, but there is a part of me where I can't overlook that. I mean, look, we got 2 rules in this whole thing. And I know there's we went out of our way to come up with a page of rules. They're all phony. They're all phony. They're the things that have never happened. There's 2 rules. Well, I suppose there's 3. Don't bite the guy. Don't kick him when he's down. And don't touch his eyes. Those are the rules. And you're 12-6, and what's a grounded opponent? You can kick him now, and if his hand's like this versus his hand's like that. There's 3 things we don't do. And there's 3 things all the way back to 1993 that you don't do. You don't bite him. You don't kick him when he's down, and you don't touch his eyes. And the reason I say that, and I even take the time to say that twice, is when you break one of those rules, those are the big ones, right? Those are the big ones. There's all sorts of things in life that you're not.
I understand what Chael's saying, but I will say this. And you forgot one, Chael, which is, you want to stay away from the groin as well. No kicking, no punting, the groin area. I guess that goes without saying, though, right? But here's the thing. Yeah, you don't want to kick a guy while he's down. And what's the other one that he said? Let's see.
1993 that you don't do. You don't bite him. You don't.
Okay, biting. Yeah, obviously you don't bite him, right? The last guy that bit someone in the UFC, he was gone after one fight. I think literally he only had one fight In that fight, he bit someone, and he was cut from the UFC. Those other two that you named, no biting, no kicking someone while they're down, those are death penalties in the UFC. We all saw what happened with Petr Yan when he kicked Aljo in the head while he was down. I mean, everyone hated him for a whole year. Lost his title. A lot of people arguing, that he should be kicked out of the UFC. The biting, we already know, like I just explained. But here's the thing with the eye pokes, man. There is not a foul that happens as regularly as the eye poke. And if we are going to, and this is why jumping behind Tom Aspinall and defending him right now is going to come back to bite everyone in the ass later. Eye pokes happen so regularly in the UFC that when they happen again, and I'm not just talking about happen, in a fight that no one knows about or that, not everyone is tuned in for. What are you going to do when an eye poke is coming from a guy that's a fan favorite? Or what are you going to do when an eye poke comes from a guy that everyone loves? What are you going to do when eye pokes come from a guy, meaning he's doing the eye poking? What are you going to do when those eye pokes come from a guy who people can't envision being the bad guy? There's no way this guy could have done it on purpose. Right? But it's going to happen. I'm telling you right now, it is going to happen. Eye pokes will never be solved unless the UFC closes the gloves, which will never happen because it's mixed martial arts, right? And you need your fingers to grapple and wrestle. They're going to happen again. So in the future, we're going to be faced with this problem of, it was Cyril Gane's fault, right? That the fight ended. Putting all the blame on Cyril Gane is not going to fix eye pokes. It's just what happens in the sport. So for Tom Aspinall, and I'm not saying Chael's doing this, for Tom Aspinall, but specifically Tom Aspinall, if he spins the narrative and makes Cyril Gane out to be the bad guy, what are y'all going to say and what are y'all going to do for the next future title fight where an eye poke happens? You guys better have that same exact energy, bro. You guys better have that same exact energy. The best thing that we as an MMA community can do right now is be neutral. Let these two guys hash it out. I'm sure Cyril Gane will come out at some point in an interview and have something to say. Let them hash it out. Tom Aspinall is in his feelings right now. He can't fight. There's a bunch of, different stuff going on with him and his camp right now. He just made a video trying to aura farm the situation, and it's not really playing out, I think, the way that he would have imagined. There's no need to feel sorry for anyone. There's no need to point the finger at anyone. This is a natural thing that happens in the UFC, bro. It is 100% natural, bro. Yes, it is. People do not... Dude, do you know what you guys sound like saying that Cyril Gane on purpose eye poked Tom Aspinall? Like, bro, I've never seen someone come in with a punch and then change it into an eye poke. That's not a thing, bro. That is not a thing. We would be able to tell in real time if someone is repeatedly going for eye pokes, missing, and then finally gets an eye poke, bro. You can't determine that by clicking throughout the fight and pausing it in certain parts of the fight and making different snippets out of it, for looking for specific points where his hands were open when we have open-handed gloves. It's so stupid, bro. But like I said, if you're going to act like this is the fault solely of Cyril Gane's, the next time it happens to a fan favorite, and they're the result of a fight ending, keep that same energy because I am 100% guaranteeing you it will happen again, bro. It's an eye poke. Eye pokes happen out of all the rules. Eye pokes happen the most. They happen on every single card.
kick him when he's down, and you don't touch his eyes. And the reason I say that, and I even take the time to say that twice, is when you break one of those rules, those are the big ones, right? Those are the big ones. There's all sorts of things in life that you're not supposed to do, but there's 10 commandments. When the thing in life that you're not supposed to do happens to be one of the 10 commandments, we have a whole nother level of mistake being made.
I understand what Chael Sonnen is saying, bro. I 100% do. But like he said, it was a mistake, bro. I think it was 100% a mistake, and I'm not just saying that, bro. At all. 100% a mistake.
And there are accidents. There is unintentional. I appreciate those things. I just don't know how much they matter when you're poking him in the eyes, you're kicking a guy when he's down, or you're biting the opponent. There's a number of ways, I've seen them, where someone's mouthpiece comes out and the other guy, I've seen this in wrestling. I watched it. If you have bite marks, you are disqualified in wrestling at one period of time. This guy cross faces another guy so hard that there's teeth marks, gets up and shows the referee. This guy never bit down. I saw another guy do in front of everybody, bites his own arm, shows the referee. Well, the rule says if there's bite marks, the opponent is disqualified.
Now, this is just the sweetest wallet I've ever seen. GPS trackable, trigger engaged.
They disqualified him. I've seen ridiculous things, and I know that there's circumstance. But the mere notion that an athlete gets an opinion on what we're going to do here is unheard of in sport aside from this one. You'll find me swimming, croquet, ballet, synchronized trampoline. I'm trying to think of rare sports. I mean, find me anyone, baseball, basketball, football, hockey. Find me any sport, niche or otherwise, that has a clause that our opinion and decision of the outcome of this match is going to be group thought involving the athlete. Because that's what we had here. Tom could have lost his belt if he used the wrong word. Anthony Smith could have taken John's belt had he used a different word. At that time it was yes, no. Not understanding that rule at all cost Chris Weidman a victory that he had canned over Gegard Mousasi after the fact. It was over. Weidman won. Weidman was not familiar with the rule. He used a word. Word cost him the match. So to have group thought on outcomes in sporting events that involve the athlete, like, let me just stop right there. Let's pretend this is a riddle. You can see where that should not be. Well, it is. It is here. And it sounds like Tom was very legitimately hurt, without question. Some of you real tucker, you decide that even when legitimately hurt that you would have finished a fight. You go ahead, you do your thing. Do your thing. Sure you would. But if he was hurt, why wasn't it a disqualification? Why would we decide it's an accident? Why would we decide that it's unintentional? Why do we always decide it's an accident? Why do we always decide it's unintentional? And Tom was not poked once. And for you really smart watchers, he wasn't even poked twice. Go back and watch the shot that Tom makes. Go watch how quickly Tom retreats. Tom was poked 3 times. There's only 10 fingers. 30% of those fingers found their way into Tom's eye in 3 minutes. At what point does intentional versus egregious not even matter?
No, I'm not gonna say I 100% agree with Chael Sonnen and what he's saying, but it's definitely an insightful take, bro. It is an insightful take. It's insightful. I ain't gonna lie. It makes you look at a different perspective. I mean, I would have to go back and look at the fight again and see how many times he was truly poked. But I'm not willing to say that Cyril Gahn did it intentionally, bro. I'm not willing to say that. You know, I'm just not. If Tom Aspinall felt like they were intentional, why didn't he protest? I've never seen, obviously it happens, but when do you ever see somebody get full on eye poked and not stop and go, I just got eye poked, I can't see? It's not a thing, bro. When I get eye poked in sparring or in a fight, I stop. Like, whoa, what was that? It was freaking fingernail in my eye, bro. You can't help it. He didn't do that. He only did that one time. Here's another video summarizing this whole thing.
Well. So
summarizing Tom Aspinall's antics on Instagram and YouTube. Just have another look. Let's get it.
Tom Aspinall has just provided his diagnosis after
Weasel
doctors in the UK, and it seems pretty bad. Hopefully he does not need surgery, because that would derail the heavyweight division for a long time. But Tom Aspinall saw a doctor and he shared the results of his medical report. We don't know if it's like permanent injuries or anything like that until he knows if he needs surgery, so that is still uncertain. But honestly, he doesn't even need to show the diagnosis. We all saw him get poked in the eye, And people are saying that the Abu Dhabi doctors didn't diagnose with any sort of severe damage or something like that. But dude, I have not seen anywhere that the doctors over there did a CT scan or MRI. I'm pretty sure even Tom's dad said that they were planning to do CT scans later, which they went to the UK for. The CT scan and MRI will tell you a lot more than the preliminary checks, right? So he got those when he went to the UK. And also, we have to acknowledge that the Abu Dhabi doctors said that his vision was impaired. It's true that they said that they didn't see any sort of permanent damages or dangerous injuries, but they did not want Tom to fight in his condition. It is important to note that Tom has gone to multiple doctors, not just one. This is from the medical report that he shared, and as you can see, there's multiple different visits in a span of a few weeks. So let's go to the summary of the entire medical report. Now, there's a lot of medical jargon throughout the whole report, and I had to do some research to see what some of these terms mean. So it says, following a bilateral eye poke injury sustained during a UFC fight in October of 2025, the patient has been diagnosed with bilateral traumatic Brown syndrome, indicating significant disruption to the superior oblique tendon trochlear complex. Now, what's Brown syndrome? So it pretty much restricts the eye movement from looking up and inward. As you can see here, the one example to the far right would be Brown syndrome, right? Clinically, he presents with persistent diplopia in multiple gaze positions, including lateral gaze and up gaze. So that is double vision, right? In multiple different angles, I guess. Blurred vision and photophobia following the trauma. Photophobia is pretty much just hypersensitivity to light. He has marked restriction of elevation and adduction in both eyes, confirmed on orthoptic assessment. So it's pretty much a restriction of eye movement when it's looking inward and up. And it's saying for both eyes. So it seems like that's similar to Brown syndrome. He has a reduction in visual acuity bilaterally. That's essentially the sharpness of the vision of both eyes, and it's usually tested with that letter chart. So obviously his vision is impaired somewhat. He has severe bilateral visual field depression on Humphrey visual field testing. So a loss in peripheral vision. So there's a lot of impairment to both eyes, not just one. And then their imaging and investigations demonstrated findings requiring continued monitoring with no definitive structural explanation identified for the degree of functional deficit. CT imaging initially raised concern for orbital wall abnormality, and then the MRI demonstrated no acute structural abnormality to account for motility impairment or visual symptoms. Intraocular pressures and anterior segment findings did not identify the source of functional limitation. So the CT imaging did find something wrong with the medial orbital wall, which could be the source of many of his issues that he has. So this constitutes clinically significant bilateral ocular trauma requiring ongoing consultant-led management. Mr. Aspinall is not yet medically cleared for combat activity. Future management, depending on clinical progression, targeted periocular steroid injections, not that type of steroids, Jones, or surgical intervention to address persistent motility impairment may be required if symptoms fail to resolve. Overall, the clinical picture remains consistent with significant traumatic bilateral Brown syndrome associated with ongoing diplopia, restricted ocular motility, reduced visual function, and substantial field loss. Symptoms remain unresolved as of late November 2025, and ongoing specialist follow-up is required and ongoing. So he's going to have to continue seeing the doctor, and they don't know for sure yet if he's going to need surgery. So basically, people wanted him to fight Cyril Gane with vision like this. Accurate depiction, of course. No, but this is what it seems like, you know? He has a loss of peripheral vision, blurred vision, double vision, he can't move his eyes in certain directions, and he's sensitive to light. And the effects were probably even worse immediately from the eye poke than it is now. Speculatively, of course. Who's gonna fight Cyril Gane with this type of vision, dude? I'll tell you who. Our true champion. You see Michael Bisping, dude, and share a bullet? These guys fight with one eye. What's Tom Aspinall complaining about? Warriors would fight without vision at all, of course. I think it's pretty logical to say that Tom made the right move. The other guy should not be cheating. Do you know what would solve this entire thing? If Cyril Gane learned to not extend his fingers, so everything is on standby until the certainty of the surgery. And
I think where I'm coming from is I hear all the medical stuff about Tom Aspinall's eye, bro. I hear all that stuff. But how do I say this in a way that doesn't come off as like jerk-offy, you know? I guess what I'm trying to say, bro, is that when you are a prize fighter or a combat fighting professional, when you are one of the best in the world, right? You're going to get to a certain level where tougher fights are going to come your way. Big money fights where people invest a lot of time, energy, and money into these fights. In order for you to climb up the ranks, especially in Tom Aspinall's situation, you have to eventually start to look at fighting a GOAT or doing something that comparatively in people's eyes and the fans' eyes will push you past the GOAT. This was one of those situations. Do you understand what I'm saying? I feel like people have gotten so off script, and Tom Aspinall has done a good job of this, of getting people so off script what the whole plot was behind him going into this fight with Cyril Gane. The plot was never, if something goes bad, you know, we're going to give you a pass. We all knew that something could go bad with this Cyril Gane fight. Like in the last video where Tom Aspinall brought up in his, you know, coming out video, there was a snippet of John Jones talking about how much he feels like Cyril Gane cheats. So what was his game plan going into the fight? To take him down immediately. That's what he did, and he got the submission. We all thought that Tom Aspinall was in that state of mind as well. But Tom Aspinall wasn't. He was in the state of mind of, well, I want to knock this guy out. Which makes sense because that's what he's done in his last two fights. But it's not how it played out this time, bro. It's just not how it played out. And stuff went absolutely wrong. But here's the thing. When you compare yourself to greatness like Tom Aspinall has been doing, you cannot afford to let opportunities like this slide and slip through your grasp, bro. In my opinion, because of all the talks of the Jones fight, because of all the talks of Tom Aspinall and his dad coming out saying he's the greatest of all time, he has literal interviews saying, I know I could beat John Jones. I know I'm better than John Jones. Well, in order to be better than John Jones, bro, you cannot let something like this happen. I'm sorry to say it. You cannot let something like this happen because we all know deep down inside, if this were to happen to John Jones, he's not going to stop fighting. We literally saw a picture on live television. Well, actually, it was a video. It was live, it was on live television when John Jones faced Santos, right? After the fight, he had his interview with Joe Rogan in the Octagon, his Octagon interview after winning his belt, after retaining his belt. And he said, Joe, look, they panned the camera downward towards his toe. His toe was literally bent in half, going the opposite direction. His big toe, it was completely off his foot. And he's still having problems out of it to this day. It's like there's certain situations where, yes, the logical thing to do is to not fight. But when you're comparing yourself to greatness, when you're trying to achieve greatness and surpass a GOAT, you need performances that are just illogical, where people are going to look at it and say, he's a dog. He's a real champion for continuing. And you cannot fault the fans for looking at Tom Aspinall and saying that he let the opportunity for people to look at that and say, hey, we could compare him to John Jones now. He might be better than John Jones. You can't blame people for not wanting to say that about you anymore, or wanting to say the opposite of that about you, because you didn't want to continue fighting. Like the Weasel said, Char Bullet has one eye. Michael Bisping has one eye. There have been greats who have kept fighting with one eye, bro. When you take that into consideration, I understand why Tom Aspinall is upset, why Aspinall fans are upset, because you guys feel like he was cheated out of a victory. But there have been other fighters, other great fighters, other Hall of Famers, or soon to be Hall of Famers, that have continued fighting in terrible situations, bro. Terrible situations. I mean, look at TJ Dillashaw when he fought Aljamain Sterling, bro. He couldn't even bring his arm up, bro, because it popped out of the socket mid-fight, and he kept fighting. There have been situations like this time and time again, and situations like this are where you separate the men from the boys. I hate to say it, bro, but this is a fact. How else are you supposed to do it? You have to have performances in your career where everything goes wrong and you continue to fight. That's just what this game is about, bro. This is not the baby gap, bro. This is the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, bro. It's a fight. You cannot expect everything to go right in all your fights, bro. It's just not gonna happen, bro. Some fights you might break something. Some fights you might tear something. Some fights you might get eye poked. Some fights you might get kicked in the nuts. It's a fist fight. It's unpredictable, bro. But you need fights like this for people to determine where to put you on the scale of toughness, for people to put you, on the scale of greatness, We need to see how you react in situations like this so we know where to place you. And Tom Aspinall is irritated about his placement right now, which makes sense. But that's just the way it is. We saw what we saw, bro. And as it appears, you might be one of the most talented. You might be one of the most athletic. You might have, some of the most crisp boxing with your 1-2. And you might have really good jiu-jitsu and grappling. But as of you being up there on the toughness scale, what you did brought you down a lot, bro. And you cannot be mad at fans for doing this, bro. That's all I'm saying. I had a fight a couple years ago where I broke my hand mid-fight. And the first thing I thought was, if I don't keep going, right? And he, the nerve behind your knee, like the Sean O'Malley where your knee starts jiggling out of place, leg goes numb. That happened to me that same fight. I was rolling my ankle over and over again, couldn't feel my leg. My first thought was, okay, I can stop because I'm in pain. I can't feel my leg. But if I do that, my rank on the toughness scale is going to drop dramatically, bro. I'm going to lose aura. It doesn't matter what I have to say afterwards. Oh, I was hurt and broke my... No, people aren't going to listen to that because it's a fight, bro. So what I do, I kept fighting. I did not stop because I knew, okay, if my rank on the toughness scale drops, my ego, my pride just is not going to take that. I would literally rather break my other hand and go out cold, than to have my stock lowered on the toughness scale, bro. That's how a man thinks. You either back out of a situation like that or you don't. There's nothing wrong with either one, you know? But you will be placed somewhere afterwards, bro. People will have something to say about it afterwards. It's like Tom Aspinall wants us all to just say, ah, man, he got poked in the eye. Poor Tom. You know what? Cyril Gahn, you're a jerk. Tom Aspinall's the greatest of all time. People aren't going to do that, bro. It's just not going to happen, bro. And I think that's where a large portion of his frustration is coming from.
Here's another clinical report from Tom that pretty much summarizes the same things, except there is an interesting specification for the last part. CT scan suggesting a minimally displaced fracture of the right medial orbital bone. So because there's a orbital fracture, some people now think that it was a punch that caused this, not an eye poke, because they think the finger can't break the orbital bone. Just for clarification, the medial orbital wall is the weakest bone, that and the orbital floor. They're very easy to break as they're as thick as your fingernail, between 0.2 to 0.4 millimeters thick. So yes, a 250-pound professional fighter can absolutely break that if he lodges his fingers into the opponent's eye. Now, is it possible it could have been a punch? It is possible, but we saw that guy's fingers get thrown directly into Tom's eyes. So I think, at minimum, it's just as logical that it was from the eye poke. Could it be a mix of both? Possibly, but we have to look at what caused Tom to stop fighting. Tom took the punches and continued to fight. It was the eye poke that caused him to stop. Now, it's a minimal displaced fracture, which means it's a fracture that moved it out of alignment. So in conclusion, Tom's eye got really messed up, which he actually spoke about. So on Tom Aspinall's YouTube channel, I'll leave the link in the description. You guys can check out the whole thing, but here's what Tom had to say about the entire ordeal.
If you can't quit the P word, I want to let you know that scripture tells us that successful.
Did you think he did it on purpose?
So, I think that when it initially happened, I didn't really think much of it. I thought accidental eye poke, whatever. Look, when
we've already saw this.
That's when I really got the gist of what's going on. The guy was trying to poke my eyes out all the way through that round. Multiple exchanges.
Bro, am I the only one that finds this kind of funny? The way that he described, I'm not saying what happened to him was funny. What happened to him was tragic, bro. You know, any injury, whether you continue or not, if an injury is an injury, it's tragic. But the way he's describing, the guy was trying to poke my fucking eyes out. He's a big fat cheetah. It's just like crazy. Like, he is dying on this hill that he got cheated out of a title fight, bro. This is crazy. He's dying on it, bro. You gotta respect, he's standing on business when it comes to his eye.
Nearly every exchange that I could put him in danger, he had his fingers out pointing towards my eyes. The guy was cheating from the first second, and the way that he wanted to win that fight was to have me compromised by cheating.
This is not the first time Cyril Gahn has cheated in a fight. I mean, there's been so many at this point, and obviously he's a professional fighter. We've heard other professional fighters like Derek Lewis specifically speak about how effective they are at disguising their cheating as accidental. Right? It's just like what Jim Miller said. Jim Miller, who has the most UFC fights, has also said that he believes when fighters cheat, it's intentional. They are professionals at the end of the day. If anybody knows how to cheat in a fight, it's going to be these guys. You know, Gahn has hit the back of the head, low blowed, fence grabbed, eye poked. He's done it all. And he was reaching at Tom's eye multiple times even before the second eye poke, emphasizing second one.
Have you heard from Cyril Gahn at all, or any contact or anything post-fight?
Nope.
And your thoughts on him at the moment?
My thoughts on him, I think he's a big cheater. I think that...
I think he's a big cheater.
Even John Jones himself,
it's just so crazy to hear the heavyweight champion talking like this, man.
Gahn's arsenal.
What about punishment for the foul?
It's a tough one, I've seen.
Either things need to change or you conform to it.
A foul.
Exactly, and that must be emphasized. It's an obvious, but I guess very important distinction to make. He did not get punched in the eye. He got poked in the eye. This is a sport or sports entertainment. I don't know what you want to call it, but there's rules to this, right? And
then to get double eye pokes, be left with.
We've already seen, pretty much this entire interview, man. If you guys want to check out my full breakdown of Tom Aspinall's entire interview that he just released, I go over it, my thoughts and opinions on it, my very last video. I'm sure it's a tough pill for Tom Aspinall to swallow. Like I said, everyone has all their different opinions on it. I think as time has gone on, we all kind of feel a little bit sorry for Tom Aspinall. I feel a little bit sorry for him, but it's like at the same time, bro, it is a fist fight, and I cannot just exile someone for eye poking you, and it was his first offense. People keep mentioning, oh yeah, he did it multiple times, but it was his first offense, bro. Do you see what I'm saying? It was his first offense in the fight. I'm not going to put Cyril Gahn on an island and say, hey, you're a cheater. It's just weird to do that, bro. That's weird, bro. You know what I'm saying? If it was an accident, chop it up to an accident and run it back, bro. People are acting like he was like on steroids, like he was on PEDs coming into the fight. Like, there's been way worse things that people have done in the UFC besides an eye poke. People are acting like this is the worst thing that someone has done. Like, bro, I get it. It was a big deal and it stopped a heavyweight championship fight. But if you guys are seriously going to sit here and act like Tom Aspinall could not have continued, dude, I'm sorry, but you're wrong, bro. Yeah, it would have been hard. Yeah, it would have been painful, but he's the heavyweight champion of the world. You're the champion. You got to stand for something, bro. Did you really think that you were going to just waltz through the entire heavyweight division, bro? Come on, let's be real. I'm not saying I don't feel sorry for Tom Aspinall, bro. I do. I understand completely 100% where he is coming from, bro. It would have definitely been difficult. But you cannot criticize everyone and get mad at everyone for saying how they feel about you not continuing, because that is another part of what happened in that night. That's another part of what happened after, during the fight, that you stopped fighting. You cannot get mad at people for mentioning that, bro. It's like when somebody mentions that, him and his fans get so pent up and angry, and it's like, dude, that's literally what happened, bro. Why are you so stuck on that part of things, bro? I haven't heard anybody say, oh, it wasn't a bad eye poke. This is literally what Tom Aspinall is doing is literally like if Cyril Gahn came out and he was only talking about Tom Aspinall stopping the fight and not continuing with the fight. That's what Tom Aspinall is doing. He's only focused on Cyril Gahn eye poking him, and he doesn't want anyone to mention the fact that he didn't want to fight anymore, the fact that he didn't, want to continue the fight anymore, bro. Bro, every sequence of what happened that night matters, and people are gonna talk about it. You should have thought about that when you said you didn't want to continue fighting. Well, as soon as you said, I don't want to continue fighting, it should have crossed your mind instantaneously that that was also going to make headlines the next day. That's all I'm saying. If you're going to look at the part where Cyril Gahn eye poked you, you have to look at the part where you did not continue. Because that's also that's just what happened, bro. You're going to have to accept that, bro. You Tom Aspinall's fans are going to have to accept that. Tom Aspinall's dad is going to have to accept that. Tom Aspinall's team and coaches and teammates are going to have to accept that. Tom Aspinall, the fighter, is going to have to accept that. It just is what it is. That's it for me, man. You guys let me know what you think. If you feel like Tom Aspinall is avoiding the fact that he did, in fact, stop fighting, let me know down below in the comments. If you feel like this is 100%, Cyril Gahn's fault. And those 3 rules are absolutely 100% non-negotiable, never supposed to be broken. And if they do get broken, we should judge the fighter that committed them and exile them and call them a cheater. If you feel that way, let me know down in the comments as well. You know, let me know what you guys think. But that's it for me, man. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and catch y'all on the next one. And as always, stay positive, stay motivated, stay inspired. Bah.